Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. This podcast has evolved over the 5+ years since it first launched. From now on, I'm going to be talking about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. And also mindset, of course, but mindset of all kinds, not just business mindset. I think. Things are changing for me, as you may have noticed if you've been following me online or listening to this podcast, so anything goes here. I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 285. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today, I'm going to talk about something that I've touched on in the past and even done another episode on, but I feel like this is such an important topic that I wanted to go deeper into it. Also, today's episode is inspired by one of my patrons who wrote in with this suggestion. But before we get into today's episode, I wanted to say a huge thank you to new patron Amelia Hay. Thank you so much for joining us in the Patreon community, and I look forward to hanging out with you in there. And since we're on the topic of Patreon, I wanted to alert you to some new changes within the Patreon community. Now that this has been up and running for a few months, I've looked at the different tiers that I'm offering and what I'm really kind of actually doing in there with the people who have joined me, and I have decided to make some changes, and it's mostly kind of adding some stuff and clarifying some of the things that I'm offering in there. So very quickly, before we get into the episode, I would like to go through the tiers. So at the root level, which is $1 a month, you get access to my patron only feed, which includes stuff that I don't share anywhere else. I will also verbally thank you in the podcast when you sign up. You also will get access to discounted sessions and packages with me, including things that I won't be sharing anywhere else. I've already made a couple of offers that I've only put out to the Patreon community, and I've got other stuff that I have put out first to the Patreon community before sending it out to my newsletter. So you will also get first dibs on limited offers before they go live to the newsletter. So that's from just $1 a month. Then at the sacral level, which is $5 a month, you get all the previous stuff. Plus, you can email me with questions anytime, citing patron Q&A in the subject heading, and I will answer your questions in the monthly Q&A. And this is a new thing. You will also get access to my weekly Heart Center session that I'm doing for patrons at this level and above. So each week I use heart-centered energy work to balance your heart center and release any blocks you may have around self-love, self-acceptance, self-trust. This is done for you energy work, so you don't need to be present. You will get it even though you don't have to show up. I'm doing it for you. When I do my She Walks in Nature walks, you will also get a free ticket to any of those. So just let me know if you can make it and I will sign you up. Next level, solar plexus. That is $11 or more a month. And you get all previous awards, plus you get free copies of all of my books in ebook format. So just email me to get a copy of those. At this level, you will also be a member of my advisory board. So you will receive a link to join my special advisory board email list after you sign up at that level. And I will be using that group for feedback with my upcoming books. Also, from time to time, I will give people in my advisory board the opportunity to contribute to my books with quotes, tips, or case studies. Next level is the heart level, and at this level you will get access to my monthly mindset session that I will be doing for patrons at this level and above. So each month I muscle test on the best topic to focus on, and then I use Psych-K to reprogram our subconscious beliefs around this topic. Again, this work is done offline, so you won't need to be present to get the results each month. And every month I post a summary in Patreon of the work that I did for all of us. Next level, communication. $55 a month or more, you get all previous rewards, plus you get access, and this is a new thing, to my monthly heart-centered energy work session that I will be doing for patrons at this level and above. So again, each month I muscle test on the best topic to focus on, and I use heart-centered energy work to reprogram our subconscious beliefs and release energy blocks around this topic. Now again, this is done for you, it's done offline. But I will also record the session and pop it into Patreon for you, which means that you can listen to it yourself if you choose to do so and do the work on your own, even though it's not necessary because it's been done for you. At this level, you also get a signed copy of any of my books that are currently in print. And moving on to the third eye, from 111 or more a month, you get all previous awards, plus you get access to a live monthly workshop with me. If you can't make it live, a recording will be sent out. The following 2 levels include a lot of one-to-one work with me, and that's live work. So the crown level at $5.55 or more a month includes 2 90-minute one-to-one sessions with me, and that can be channeling, heart-centered energy work, Psych K, coaching, whatever you want. Final level, Transcendence, at $1,111 a month. You get 4 90-minute one-to-one sessions with me, and again, we can work in whatever way you need. So those are the tiers. That's it for Patreon this month. I just wanted to let you know the new stuff that's in there and all the stuff that I've added. So, moving on to today's episode. Again, this topic is thanks to one of my patrons who wrote in with the following suggestion. I've been thinking about trust, and specifically trusting your own judgment. Trusting that things will work out, trusting in the universe, trusting that things will unfold, and trust that things will be all right. I had a bad day yesterday due to various things, and I just ended up in that space where you think things will never be right. Today things are better, and I was really thinking about why, when I'm in that zone, I don't trust that I won't stay there forever, even though I have never stayed there forever. I really think practical tips for when you're in that zone and generally building trust would be helpful. I do think you have to build trust, but sometimes I feel I'm not doing enough work on that. For me, a lot of it is fight or flight and rational brain not kicking in when I'm in panic mode, but trust is definitely a part of it too. So I've touched on aspects of this in a couple of previous episodes, but I really think this is worth revisiting as we move into the new year. So as I record this, it is December, but as you are listening to this, it is, at the very least, the first Monday in January. So, Happy New Year. I think this is a really timely episode as we move into the new year because trusting yourself is massively life-changing. I mean, the more you trust yourself, the less you will rely on other people for decision-making and just everything in your life. It just gives you your own compass by which you can judge what's right or wrong, what decisions you need to make. It's really difficult for me to explain just how life-changing it has been for me. So, moving on to the episode. You are going to learn how to trust your own judgment, how to trust that things will work out, how to trust in the universe, how to trust that things will unfold in your best interest and highest good, how to trust that things will be all right, how to trust that you're exactly where you need to be right now on your path, what to do when you fall into that pit of mistrust, and how to build your trust in yourself. So as I said, I've kind of touched on this in some previous episodes. I did one episode on trust, episode 243, How to Trust Yourself in Business, and that has a downloadable transcript. So I would recommend that you check that one out as well, because that's kind of the first version of this. Episode 280, which is more recent, was about how to let go of pessimism and feel more optimistic about everything, also with downloadable transcript. So those are 2 things that if you want to kind of delve deeper into this topic of trust and trusting that everything is going to work out, you might find those useful. But for now, let's talk about trust. I came from a place where I didn't trust myself. I had completely gotten off track. Again, that's debatable because you could argue that we're always on track, but I felt off track. I felt like I was totally out of alignment. I felt like I didn't know up from down, right from wrong. I was just living out of alignment with my values. It was just not a good time. And I'm talking about the period of time when I was running my first business. And that went on for about 10 years. It was like I kind of got more and more and more out of alignment until it got to the point where I just couldn't take it anymore. And I left and made a lot of big changes in my life. And then from there, I spent the following 10 years trying to get back into alignment. And And now I'm at the point where I am more aligned than I ever have been. And I trust myself more than I ever have. I think I spent the vast majority of my life just not trusting myself at all. I was always looking outside myself for advice, for guidance from other people, because I just didn't trust myself. And obviously when I trained in Psych K 5 years ago and started doing the mindset work with myself, that was kind of the first step on this path to trusting myself. But one of the biggest things was working with my coach. And she's more than a coach because she channels your guides. Lisa Wechtenheiser, whom I've mentioned 1,000 times on this podcast, she kind of specializes in helping people develop unwavering trust in themselves. And she was the person that really helped me move from this place of, I don't know who I am, what I'm doing, how do I make decisions, I don't know, to absolutely knowing which things are right, which things are wrong, and making really good decisions for myself and for my life. And as soon as I finished recording episode 243, which was How to Trust Yourself in Business, I realized that I neglected to mention Lisa. And I felt really, really bad about that because really my self-trust is kind of before and after my work with her, because she really, really, really helped me to trust myself deeply and have that unwavering trust that she always talks about. So I think one of the ways that you can develop trust in yourself is working with someone like her, working with someone who is, she's more than a coach, like I said, but she's kind of like a trust coach. Like she really helps you develop trust in yourself. So I always recommend Lisa. Check her out, learn from her, and maybe work with her, or find someone else, or do the mindset work to start building trust in yourself. I don't think that this necessarily has to be a solitary journey to learning to trust yourself. You absolutely can get support from other people, whether that's listening to a podcast episode like this, or working with a coach, or doing a course, or reading a book, or something that will help you on your path to trusting yourself. Self-trust is such an important element in my life that it's one of the core elements of heart-centered energy work that I do. So when I work with myself or with someone else using heart-centered energy work, the very first thing we do is we balance the heart center. And as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the things that I offer as a done-for-you session for my patrons, depending on what tier you sign up at, because the heart center is where we work on self-trust and self-acceptance and self-love. And those are kind of the three things that are just so important that if you can get those and start developing those, life just becomes so much more aligned and so much easier. And I can hear myself talking and I realize how kind of abstract this sounds, but it's just absolutely life-changing. So getting into the practical side of things, how do you develop this trust in yourself, this unwavering trust? So before we get into that, let's talk about what is trust. So trust is reliance on the integrity, strength, ability of a person or thing. So the ability to rely on your own integrity, strength, ability. Confidence. It's confident expectation of something, hope. So self-trust is being able to rely on yourself, trusting in your abilities, trusting in your strength, trusting in your capacity to do the things you want to do, create the life you want to create. And if you don't have that, life is kind of crappy, because you'll often find yourself looking to other people for help when making decisions or other things in life. And I'm pretty sure we've all experienced self-doubt at some point in our lives. I think some of us more than others, and I think a lot of people go through most of their lives doubting themselves, doubting their abilities, doubting their capacity, doubting their ability to create the life they want to have. So if you've ever doubted in yourself, this episode is for you. And I'm pretty sure that's everyone out there. Because We all have moments of self-doubt. We all have bad days where we don't trust in ourselves, where we don't trust the universe, where we don't trust that things will work out for us. And the question is why? Why do we stop trusting ourselves? Why don't we have this innate ability to sustain a sense of unwavering trust in ourselves? I think a lot of it has to do with fear. I think a lot of it has to do with fear of making the wrong decision, fear of going down the wrong path in life, fear of getting off track, fears of just not getting it right. And, this can come from so many different places. It can come from parents, family members, friends, teachers, authority figures in our life, starting from very young. We want to do something and they say, no, you can't do that. And I think that kind of starts to plant the seeds of doubt in ourselves. And this is natural and this is part of life. And so this is not to point the finger at anyone or point the blame at anyone. It's just something that happens. Like we stop trusting ourselves and life gets more difficult, to be honest. So how to turn that around? My starting point is something that I discussed in the previous episode 243, where I talked about trusting yourself in business, is to know yourself, to really know who you are, where you are in life, where you're going in life, what do you want in life, and really getting to know yourself deeply. Now, I'm not going to talk anymore on this topic because I've already talked about it in episode 243. So if you want to delve more into that, look into that. Know yourself. That is the first step. Now, if you feel like you know yourself, but yet you still don't trust yourself, what can you do? As I mentioned in that episode, I also talked about building your intuition, and I talk about many ways to build on your intuition in my business intuition book, which is useful not just for business intuition, but for life intuition. So getting to know yourself and trusting your gut, kind of the two foundation steps. If you feel like you've got those under control, or at least you're started on your journey to both building your intuition and knowing yourself, I think the important thing is to focus on what you do want. Don't allow yourself kind of get wrapped up in what other people are doing, compare yourself to what other people are doing, compare yourself to where other people are on their path. Stay focused on you. Avoid shiny objects. Stay focused on you. Stay focused on you and your life and your decisions and what you want. And I know this is easier said than done, but I think when we have those crappy days where we feel like nothing's ever going to be right and we've gotten off our path and life is shit, the best thing to do is to turn our focus on ourselves. Like, what do you want? What are you doing today? What can you do today to take one tiny step, or one big step, but one tiny step towards your goals, towards what you want in life, towards what you want to experience? So it's always going to be about turning your perspective on its head. So stop focusing on what you don't want and start focusing on what you do want. And when you feel yourself getting off track and when you feel yourself spiraling down, stop and focus on what you do want. And one of the easiest ways that I found to do that is through gratitude work, is just stop and write a list of 10 things that you're grateful for, or 3 things that you're grateful for, or 1 thing that you're grateful for, but stop your downward spiral and focus on the stuff that you already have. That, to me, is one of the easiest ways to turn around my perspective and start focusing again on what I already have and then what I do want to experience. So I think a lot of us stray off our path and kind of go into this downward spiral because we lose this focus on ourselves and we start focusing on others. And when I say focus on yourself, I'm not saying that you need to be self-centered all the time and only think about yourself and forget other people's needs. But the focus needs to be on yourself in the sense of focusing on what you do want so you can make decisions based on what you do want to experience and not what you don't want to experience. This is the basis of the mindset work that I've been doing for the last 5.5 years. Focus on what you do want rather than what you don't want. And that will really help you with your own judgment, because if you have got your head firmly centered on what you do want to experience, it will make it a lot easier for you to make decisions and judgments that are in alignment with what you do want to experience. So, how to trust in the universe, how to trust that things will work out, how to trust that things will unfold in your best interest and highest good, and that everything will be all right. I think, again, this goes back to focusing on what you do want and taking little steps towards that. And when you falter in your path, refocus your attention on what you do want. And focus on positive things. Focus on how you want to feel. Focus on things that make you feel good. Focus on experiencing the things that you want to experience. And I know sometimes we don't always kind of create those things in physical reality. So like maybe you want to travel and you don't have the money now. You can travel in your mind, like either read a book or watch a film or a documentary or something on that place that you want to travel to. Travel with your mind. Visualize the things that you want to experience. This is all part of reality creation and manifestation, whatever you want to call it, but it's all part of the work that we do to create the life that we want to create. It's mindset work and it's practical action work. So the more you focus on the things that you want to experience, the more you will trust that things will actually be unfolding the way you want them to, because it will start showing up in your reality. It will start happening because you will start taking the actions you need to take to achieve those things. Again, this isn't just doing the mindset work. This isn't just visualizing and practicing the law of attraction. You do need to take practical action here. But the more you do the mindset work, the easier it will be for you to take the practical action. Now, I've been through some dark phases in my life, so I'm aware that we all have ups and downs in our lives. Sometimes we get to a point where things just feel like shit and life doesn't seem to be working out, and we feel like we've gotten off track and we feel like we've gotten off our path. And even that crappy stuff is useful. Even that crappy stuff is part of your path. And I think part of trusting that you're exactly where you need to be right now on your path and that things are unfolding in your best interest and highest good has to do with accepting that we have ups and downs in our lives. And just because you kind of fall into a dip doesn't mean that you're going to start coming out of it. Again, when you're in that dip, move your focus, move your attention to what you want instead, what you would rather be having instead. I feel like this might sound like I'm oversimplifying it, but this is really what you need to do. Change your focus. Change your focus to what you want to be experiencing instead. And do that however you do it, whether it's doing belief upgrades, mindset work, energy work, journaling, gratitude work, like whatever, but like do something to change your focus to the things that you want to experience. I set a lot of goals. I work towards my goals. I have a vision. I have dreams. And I tend to get really impatient with myself. And I tend to get really frustrated with myself that I feel like I'm not doing enough or moving fast enough. And I do this because I often will compare myself to other people. And every time I compare myself to other people, I feel like shit. Luckily, I have been pretty good about not doing that as much as I used to, but occasionally it still happens. I actually did an episode on this a while back. It was number 239, How to Quit the Comparison Game for Good. So if this is something that you're experiencing, check out that episode. It's definitely something that I have gotten myself stuck in the past. So again, how to trust that you are exactly where you need to be on your path right now. I really struggle with that sometimes because I get impatient. So much so that I was looking through my flower essences and homeopathic stuff the other day, and I saw that I had not one but 2 vials of the Impatiens flower essence because I must have forgotten I bought it the first time and I felt so impatient I wanted to get a second one. I don't know, but something that's been a thing for me for much of my life. I'm not moving fast enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not where I should be fast enough. And the other week, I got one of my weekly Akashic Records emails, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes. from Vicky Young. And the Akashic Records Keepers said to me, Holly, we wish to send this message to you so that you can realize that you are exactly where you need to be. Need to be. And they said that in all caps. Think about that for a minute, Holly. You need to be somewhere right now. And where in fact is that? I love the sense of humor they have. And this is really timely for me because I often feel like I'm not moving fast enough. And to hear that message, I'm exactly where I need to be right now, is really useful. So I'm going to say it to you. You are exactly where you need to be right now. Think about that. You need to be somewhere right now. And where in fact is that? Right where you are. So thinking about that concept, you are exactly where you need to be right now. Now, I know a lot of people have resistance to hearing this. I was actually discussing this email with a friend a couple weeks ago, and she was like, I hate that message. I know it's right, but I hate it. So if you're having that knee-jerk reaction, fine, that's okay. Have that reaction, allow yourself to experience that, and think, what if this were true? What if you are exactly where you need to be right now? Because that is the case. Your life is unfolding exactly as it's meant to. Everything that's happening to you, even the crappy crap, is in your best interest and highest good. And I know that can be hard to swallow sometimes, because sometimes life feels like crap. But that's the truth. You are exactly where you need to be, even if you're having a crappy day. That's the stuff that makes us stronger and teaches us stuff. So trust that you are exactly where you need to be right now. And when you fall into that pit of mistrust, that pit of doubt, turn your focus around from life is crap, it's never going to get better, I'm crap, I'm never going to do what I want to do, I'm never going to achieve what I want to achieve. Turn your focus from that crap to what you want instead. So don't get distracted by others. Don't get distracted by comparing yourself. Put the focus back on you and what you want to experience in your life. So I'm going to recap some of the things that I said earlier that you can do, because I feel like this has been kind of a motivational kind of episode, but I like it to be really practical. So here are some things you can do today or whenever you get into that downward spiral of crappiness. Stop. Take a few minutes and change your focus. Do a gratitude list. I find 10 a good list, because that's enough time to kind of really get into it and turn my thoughts on being grateful for what I currently have. And that's kind of the transition from I feel like shit, but I already have lots of good things in my life. I want to create more good things in my life. So the gratitude work for me is kind of the bridge between the crappy crap and the good stuff. That's what works for me. That may or may not work for you. I know a lot of people have resistance to doing gratitude work. I say try it once and see if it helps. If you're feeling like shit, what's the worst that can happen? Gratitude work is not going to make you feel any worse. So gratitude first, because that's the bridge. You might have a different bridge. And then from there, focus on what you do want. So do the mindset work. So if you work with belief statements using Psych-K or another technique, create some belief statements around what you do want to experience. Psych-K has a process called a Back to the Future, which is a really specific way of creating a vision of what you want to experience. Do that. Or just visualize or write out, what do you want to have instead? So if you're feeling crappy about your family or your business or your life or your money, what do you want instead? And that's the question you need to answer, but you need to answer it in detail. So journal it, meditate on it, visualize it, whatever works for you. What do you want instead? But in detail, like what are you going to be doing differently? How do you want to feel differently? What do you want to be happening around you that's different? And you can do this on your own, or you can get help from someone else. If you're having a shitty day, where you feel like everything is just awful, start immediately. Do the gratitude work or whatever your kind of bridge thing is, and then do the other stuff to focus on what you do want. And then if you feel like you need extra help, hire someone, hire a coach, hire a mentor, someone to help you turn this stuff around. But start with yourself. And moving back to our original topic of trusting in yourself, the more you do the work with yourself to pull yourself up out of these crappy places, the more you're going to trust yourself, the more you're going to trust in your ability to get yourself back on track, to get yourself feeling good, to get yourself creating the life that you want to create, to get yourself living the life that you want to create. So doing this work with yourself first before you hire someone else to help you is going to help your self-trust. Hope that makes sense. The more you can do this work with yourself, the more you will increase your self-trust. The more you do the mindset work with yourself, the more you will increase your self-trust. The more you help yourself, the more you will increase your self-trust. I feel like I'm getting really ranty here, but this is it. This is you helping yourself before you get outside help. And again, getting outside help is fine. I do it all the time. There's nothing wrong with getting outside help, but also help yourself. Make sure that you don't fall into the trap of always getting outside help and not helping yourself. Help yourself first, because that's super empowering. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot, and it's one of those words like alignment and authentic that I don't know if they even have their original powerful meaning anymore because they're getting used a lot. But it's super empowering to be able to trust yourself. So do the work with yourself first. And if you feel like I'm in the middle of a whirlwind and I don't have time, I don't know, 5 minutes? You don't have 5 minutes? Like, go to the bathroom, pee, and visualize something nice while you're in the bathroom. I don't know. You've got a couple of minutes. So do what you need to do to turn your focus around. That is the basis of all of my advice in this episode. And self-trust is such an important thing that I am happy to revisit this in another episode on self-trust. So if you listen to this and you listen to the other episode on self-trust and you think, I still don't know what the hell she's talking about. I don't know what the hell to do. Like, how do I get out of this pit of doubt and crap? Email me, holly@hollyworton.com. Tell me your crap and tell me like what your questions are, and I will do another episode on this. Or if you're in Patreon, head over to the Patreon community, post your crap in there, and we'll talk about it in there. This is a super, super important topic for me, and I'm happy to do more episodes on this because self-trust is life-changing. I said this a lot at the beginning of this episode, but oh God, life is before and after self-trust for me. It feels so damn good to trust myself. And again, I'm not perfect. I'm not trusting myself 100% of every second of every day. I have some blips, but the blips are short and few and far between. So focus on what you do want, even when you're in that crappy place. Turn your thoughts around. Turn your focus away from nothing's working, things are shit, to what do I want instead? If you take one thing away from this episode, it's the question, what do I want instead? That is the question you should always be asking yourself when you feel like shit. When you feel like things aren't working out, nothing's working, your life is crap. What do I want instead? I feel like shit. What do I want instead? How do I want to feel instead? What do I want to be experiencing instead? What do I want instead? Rant over. So I hope you found this interesting and useful. I hope you apply this to your life. And if you still feel like that didn't solve anything, please let me know. Please let me know what you need, and I will do another episode on it. So that is all for today. Please email me at holly@hollyworton.com if you have questions, comments, ideas for episode topics, whatever. I love doing episodes based on what you want to hear. So I love it when people send me topics. And as always, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate the time that people spend listening to these. I appreciate the feedback that I get. I do like feedback because it's really useful for me to know what you find useful and helpful. So feedback is good. And next week's episode is a really juicy one with Joe Casey, where we talk about connecting to nature and using that as a basis to connect with yourself and deepening your connection with yourself, which is another thing that fosters self-trust. So I kind of feel like next week's episode is a good partner to this week's episode. It's good stuff. So tune in next week. And in the meantime, remember to visit hollyworton.com/285 for the show notes on this episode. And if you feel drawn to, join me on Patreon. That's patreon.com/hollywharton. I would love to see you in there. And that's it for now. Have a great week, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Worton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollyworton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. That's patreon.com/Holly Worton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.